Welcome back. Did you get all of your work done for lesson 3? Did you learn your vocabulary and forms, and did you do all the exercises? If you did, you can do some 48 forms now. You can identify 48 different Greek words just in what you've done. Today we're going to pick up some more, and we'll learn some vocabulary, get some nouns, so that you can put subjects and objects and all that kind of thing with your verbs. So pay attention as we go to lesson 4, page 23, and workbook page 5. We'll do the vocabulary first. The vocabulary starts with adelphos, a brother. Now you see it's adelphos, o, a brother. That o indicates to you that it's a masculine word. Has nothing to do with the at this point. So just know that the o there is the masculine article, which says adelphos is a masculine noun. Later on we'll see a different one. The second word is anthropos, o, a man. Now you remember adelphos because of the word Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. Adelphos and philos, the word love. Adelphos, a brother. Anthropos, a man. The word anthropology, you shouldn't have any problem with that. Anthropos, o, a man. Apostolos, o, an apostle. Now that is self-explanatory. That's simply a transliteration from the Greek into the English. Apostolos, o, an apostle. Doulos, o, a slave or a servant. Doron, do. Now this is not o, but do, and that makes this a neuter noun. The own ending and the to also indicate to us that this is a neuter noun, doron, a gift. Thanatos, o, a death. Iaron, do, a temple, is another neuter noun. And notice that the iota and epsilon are together, but they're not a diphthong, because the iota is a closing vowel, and that always closes a syllable. So you have iaron, do, a temple. Ke is the word for hand. Logos, o, a word. Nomos, o, a law. Ekos, o, a house. And Eos, o, a son. That's the vocabulary. And before we go into any of the explanations of the grammar, I'd like for us to look at the forms that we have over on the flip chart. You see here the forms for logos. We have the various cases indicated. This is the nominative, the genitive, the dative, and accusative. Those are the 4 cases that we'll be dealing with. We'll talk about the other vocative, but for now we're dealing only with 4 cases, and that's all we have to worry about. So, just as in the verb, we had a stem. This is the stem, and the last 2 letters here, os, that is the ending. Os, and then the u, o, on. So let's draw a line down here like we did with the verb in the last chapter. And you see that these are the endings. Now, whatever word we have, logos, adelphos, whatever, that os is the ending, and the rest of it is the stem. So I can put any word here. I can put adelphos, and then adelphu, adelpho, adelphon. Just as logos, logo, logo, logon. And this then is going to tell us what case it is. Singular, os, the plural, e. Now that's the way we're going to tell the uses of these words. Cases, os, u, o, on. And so learn these forms in this way. Learn os, u, o, on, e, on, is, us, just as the tape says. Os, u, o, on, e, on, is, us. Learn those, and then there on page paragraph 41, you see another set of forms, and those we have here in your workbook on page 8. You see the list of logos that we just talked about, and then you see thoron over here. Now, these are very similar. Thoron, you already know that one from the vocabulary form, thoron, and then the nominative and accusative are the same in the neuter. Nominative and accusative are the same form. Thoron, thoron. It will be true also in the plural. Thora, thora. Then the genitive and dative are the same as the masculine. U-o, u-o. So if you know these, And you already know that though roan is the nominative here, and it's going to therefore be the accusative here, you really don't have to learn anything new except that this though ra, once you know though ra, that will be also the accusative. These genitive and dative forms are going to be the same again. And so that will help you in learning the neuter once you already know the masculine. So concentrate on the masculine and then identify that with the neuter and learn those forms. Now let's look at some paragraphs in Machen, page 23, paragraph 25. There are 3 declensions in Greek. The second declension is the one we're studying now. It's also called the O declension. And the other 2, the first we'll study in the next chapter, and then the third we'll get much later on, chapter 17. So this is the second declension. Then in paragraph 26, he says there is no definite article in Greek, no indefinite article. By that he means there is no word a. It's either the or nothing. That means then that for now what we'll do is we'll translate, if there's an article there, once we get the article forms in chapter 5, if there's an article there, we'll say the brother or the whatever. If there's no article, we'll say a in the singular. But that doesn't mean that it's indefinite. We'll simply do that for the ease of translation in the first part. Don't let anyone tell you if there's no article there, it has to be a, as in John 1:1. That simply is not true, and that person who tells you that either had no Greek at all or he didn't get past chapter 5 of Machen. So, just paragraph 26. 27 says the noun in the Greek has gender, number, and case. There are 3 genders. 28. The genders are masculine, feminine, and neuter, just like English. But the gender is not determined simply by sex, though that is the case sometimes. For the most part, it's simply learn what the gender is and then go by that, rather than by the differentiation between sex or between persons and non-persons. In paragraph 29, it says the 2 numbers are singular and plural. That shouldn't be any problem. That's just like the verb. A singular, one, plural, many. The cases. There are 5 cases, he says in paragraph 30. There are nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. And you see in the paragraph 31, that he has anthrope, a man. Well, we'll ignore that for now. Just plain ignore it. We'll not learn it at all. We'll go from anthropos, then on through os, u, o, on. Now, those will be the indication of the cases. And on beginning with paragraph 34 on page 25, he tells us how to use the cases. I'd like for us to note this as we look at the chalkboard here, that the os nominative, and this is paragraph 34, he says that is used as subject. So let's put a diagram over here, and we'll make a visual use of the case here. For instance, if it's nominative, it's going to be subject. This is the subject spot in a diagram. And we'll find here the nominative case. And the nominative case will be either os in the masculine, or e if it's plural. You'll find then the words that end in os or e as subjects of the sentence. Then he says also in paragraph 34, that the object is in the accusative. So going along with Machen, we'll go ahead and do this one next. Own. The accusative will be the direct object. Here's the direct object down here, the object of the verb. And so we'll find the object, the accusative case, and that will be either own or us. Singular, plural. Own, accusative. Then in paragraph 35, he says, the genitive is the case of possession. Genitive, u, or own. U or own, the genitive case, will be the case of possession. We usually have the word of in English. We say of this or of that. The possessive, and the possessive will be modifying the word it follows. So it could be following this one, that would be the genitive. Possessive, the genitive case, either oo or own. It could be there, it could be over here. Wherever the genitive, whichever word the genitive follows, that's the word it will be in construct with, or as we say, modifying it. The final one is the dative. The dative, either o or is the case of the indirect object. Now, the indirect object is probably the one that we'll have a little more trouble with in English. Let me give you an illustration. He threw me the ball. Now, remember how in English you used to underline the subject, underline the verb? Here's the subject, here's the verb, where's the object? Not me, the ball. See? That's what he threw. The object is always answering the question who or what. So, he threw the ball. Now, where is me coming in? Well, me is the indirect object. He threw the ball, but he threw the ball to me. So, if you can, in English, if you can understand either a to or a for in the sense of the sentence, you understand that. You don't have it written in. You understand it. Then that's the indirect object. That's the indirect object in English. Now, in Greek, then, the indirect object, the to or for thing, will be either in the dative, either the o or the is. And we diagram the indirect object under the verb. So you'd have indirect object, dative case, and you'll have either the o or the is in the masculine declension. So you see then, we already had the verb from last lesson, from lesson 3, and now we have the subject, verb, a subject and an object, an indirect object. We have possessive, so we have all kinds of things ready to work with now, and this is going to help us to really form sentences and really get into our Greek from here. Now, this really brings us into the diagramming, so let's look just at a section on diagram. Well, before we do that, look at page 5A of your workbook. 5A. We want to begin here, and we'll be working on this page the rest of our time in Greek. You see the uses of the cases, nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative, and we have one of each now. For nominative, we'll have subject. For genitive, we'll have possession. For dative, we'll have indirect object. For accusative, we'll have direct object. So you ought to write those into your workbook, and then as we get further uses, you see we have a lot of lines here. We won't use them all, but we'll have a lot of uses for the various cases, and we'll add those as we come along. So let's fill that in, and then we'll talk about that a little more later. Then we have the diagramming. You see we talked about diagramming the subject, and then the object, the verb is already in there. Subject, object. Now, what we want to do in our homeworks is diagram every sentence. Don't do anything without diagramming. So, we're going to say, this one, by the way, is number 1 in your exercises for this lesson. A brother sees a man. Now, the Greek is right here. This is a recap of the whole thing. A brother sees a man. You translate this into this other diagram. A brother sees a man. Adolphos blepi anthropon. A brother sees a man. So, diagram, first of all, the sentence in the book. Translate that into the opposite diagram, and then write out that sentence on the side of the paper. So, this will be the form that you do your homework. When you get your homework sent in, this will be the form. And normally you will do 10 Greek to English and 5 of the English to Greek. And turn those in for correction if you're taking it for credit in any way. Now, while you're on the subject of homework, let's talk about the addendum. On page 62 of your workbook, you'll see illustrations of all kinds of diagramming, and they're numbered. This will be page 27, number 1, the one we just talked about. Adolphos blepi anthropon, a brother sees a man, written out, translation. Then in number 7, Same sentence. You see a compound. Brothers receive slaves and houses. And you see that here's the nominative here, subject. Here are the accusatives, us. And then the compound sentence, compound objects are connected by ke. Zulus ke ikus. So diagram compound parts this way, and then write out the sentence inside. That's number 7. Number 12 has an indirect object, see? A brother says a word to an apostle. A brother says a word to an apostle. So in your English diagram, you ought to have the word to in there, in parentheses, because parentheses indicates that there's really no word to correspond with to, but it is a part of the meaning of the translation. So we put it in parentheses. In your Bibles, it will be in italics. And then number 20 on page 28, you see a genitive of possession. Sons of apostles. There's the genitive right there. And then you see a compound verb and object. And that's number 20. So you look at that in the exercises, and you'll see an illustration of all the diagramming in this book somewhere, in the addendum or in the chapter in which we learn that kind of construction. Now back to Machen for one last or two last paragraphs. In paragraph 43, he speaks of order of the words. Now, in English, if I want to give you the subject, I normally have to say that first because we don't have endings. If I want to say a brother sees a slave, I have to put brother first. If I say slave sees brother, then you're going to think slave is the subject, and it will be in English. In Greek, that's the normal word order, subject, verb, object. But it isn't always that way, and Machen is going to change it around a little bit just to see if you're paying attention, because you can look at the endings and find out which is the subject. Just as that one we talked about with the brothers take slaves and houses, that is number 7, and you see the objects come first, and then the verb, and then the subject is at the last. And you know which it is because of the ending. So word order will normally be that, but watch the endings. That's the most important part. Then in paragraph 44, we have the movable knee. We have a movable N in English. If you wanted to say, you can say a chair, or you can say a hat, or if you want to say apple, would you say a apple? A little hard to say. So you don't say a apple, you say an apple, and that is the movable N in English. Well, we have a movable knee in Greek, and it occurs not with the indefinite articles because we have none, but it occurs at the end of the third person plural verb, the usi ending. Maybe usin, usi or usin, especially before vowels or sometimes at the end of the sentence. So watch that. When you see it, you won't be puzzled by it. Verse 7 has one, by the way, or number 7. Lamvanu sin, before that aleph, or the alpha of the Adelphi. So watch that. And then for your exercises, do the first 10 of the Greek to English, first 5 English to Greek, and don't do your exercises until you know your vocabulary without looking back, until you know your forms without looking back. In other words, line upon line, precept upon precept, because if you do it real fast, you'll build a house of cards and it'll all come tumbling down about lesson 11. So get that squared away, and then you'll be ready to go on to lesson 5.